Hello there, my name is Jocelyn, you may call me Joy, and in this video I'm going to be continuing my trilogy about the world of work by telling you a little bit about my own skills when it comes to the world of employment. So a while ago, back in June, for context it's now November, a friend of mine sent me a link to something that was supposed to help me find a job. Turns out it wasn't actually more than just an aptitude test, but the results were still rather interesting nonetheless, and I thought I'd share them with you. Now, this is a test that's come straight from the National Careers Service, so I'm expecting that there's at least some degree of social science that's gone into developing these questions and how the answers have been tracked. This is also a rather useful exercise for anyone to do who is thinking of changing careers or figuring out what they need to focus on when it comes to working. The problem is, as with all aptitude tests, that it doesn't actually help you find any of these jobs that it recommends at the end. Nonetheless, here we go. Skill areas. The skill areas questionnaire measures 9 skill areas or types of activities you feel that you are able to do. Each area is related to the world of work. These 9 areas are handling change and pressure, planning and focusing on detail, working with others, learning and technology, convincing and communicating, showing energy and drive, creative thinking, solving problems, and taking responsibility. The results show that no single area has emerged as a clear strength for me. Instead, my profile is closely balanced across a number of areas, and it suggests that I may wish to discuss this further with a qualified careers instructor, which is quite nice to know that I am somewhat of a balanced person, like well-rounded in these areas. I would say that since June, the ability to handle change and pressure has certainly declined. It also suggested here that taking responsibility was a skill area that I felt I could do less well. This again is really more due to the fact that I was working a job that demanded a lot of responsibility, and I was reluctant, resentful, and overwhelmed by the amount of responsibility that I, as one human being, had to do. It's not like I'm trying to palm off responsibility onto others. It's that I feel better when I share that responsibility. And there were a lot of times in that job when that just wasn't possible. The next category is interest. Things that interest me. Doing what you're interested in can be very important for job satisfaction. It shows that I was very interested in creative art skills, new ideas, producing imaginative and original work, and reading and writing focused interests such as researching information, editing, and writing. That is not a surprise to me, especially considering what I'm doing right now with my hobby. It shows that I was moderately interested in organising, that is to say planning activities, keeping records, checking details, and following set ways of doing things, following set plans. It's helpful to have that structure in a work environment. Influencing, again, considering what I'm doing right now, working with people and helping change their views and choices. Not a surprise there at all. Scientific, doing scientific activities to find out facts about the world. I do like to know how things work. Caring, using social skills to teach, support, care, and help for others. This is, while I do care about supporting others and teaching others, there are limits to what I feel I can do there. And leisure, providing a service to people in restaurants, bars, hotels. Actually, thinking about it, there are reasons why I started doing bar work and continued with it for so long, is that, yes, I did enjoy it for a period of time. The fact that it got so much for me was the downside. But there was still a hell of a lot of good things about doing that work that I, would like to take with me. The results showed that I was a little interested in storage and transport, being involved with the movements of goods and people, and number focus, working with figures, numbers, and data. Now, that one I will agree with, the numbers thing. I'm, not exactly what you would call a genius when it comes to maths and numbers, but certainly making sense of figures and patterns click something in my brain for me. And I was not at all interested in engineering, working step by step to design, build, maintain, or repair structures or equipment, or taking charge. Again, I think that was more my resentful side of not wanting to have so much responsibility heaped onto me at that time. Working in difficult situations or tough environments and giving clear orders and following commands. Just taking charge as one individual is not something that works well for me. As part of a team, that's a different story. The next area is personal style, which, as I'm far too fabulous for just one gender, you can see that when it comes to style, I did pretty well at this. The results show that what comes most naturally to me when looking for a job says I'm most likely to enjoy spending my time with other people. This may help me to come across as friendly and sociable in assessment situations. My tendency to try to understand other people's behaviour helps me to relate well to others in interviews. I am a fairly intuitive person. I have what I'd say, a rather good level of self-awareness when it comes to things like emotions and situations and responses, and I apply that to how I think other people feel. And that's not just me blowing smoke up my own ass. I've had therapists in the past that have said, oh yeah, you're quite self-aware. So, must be true. I am likely to take an organised approach looking for work. This can be especially helpful when filling in application forms or keeping track of applications. I don't know how it got that result. I'm actually quite terrible at organising things by myself. Especially after the whole, depression thing just kicked off in my brain and I needed to deal with not organising things for a while. It says I'm likely to keep my emotions under control. This may help me bounce back when things go my way, for example, when a job application has been turned down. Now, again, this is not so true now as it was 5 months ago because mental health issues. Generally speaking, keeping my emotions under control and suppressing emotions kind of read the same in this kind of test, where I pretty much was doing one more than another. What comes less naturally to me? It says I tend to enjoy being around other people and may miss the company of others when looking for work. This was one of the issues I had with my job, where I was surrounded by people, but at the same time feeling lonely as hell because there was just not enough support whilst actually working. Being one of 2 or 3 people working at a time, except for busy periods, is incredibly isolating, actually. I am likely to feel tense and worried when under pressure. Being aware of this and doing things to help me relax can make it easier for me to appear more confident in interviews or selection events. This, I could have told it word for word myself. I there's only a certain amount of pressure that one person can take before they crumble. And I do sometimes allow my leisure time to take over a little bit more than I ought to, but it is only as a result of me trying to find the really good balance. It says, I may not enjoy persuading others. This may mean that I may have to make an effort to convince potential employers that I have the skills needed to do the job. Self-confidence is a weird thing that it just, after a certain amount of time, it kind of becomes impossible to fake. And without that, like, persuading others of anything is going to be impossible because you're not going to be able to think it or believe it yourself. Which is what's happened to me at certain various points in my life. Why is it every year that ends in a 3 turns out to be bad for me? Like 10 years ago, 2013 was one of the worst years of my entire life. And this year, it hasn't exactly come up smelling of roses for me either. Next area is motivation. This section looks at 7 areas of motivation that describe the kinds of work environment that are most important to me. Again, the more motivated that someone is by the environment, the more job satisfaction that they're going to get. These rank from most important to least important, and it does actually helpfully say that motivations do sometimes change with time. So I'm most motivated by a creative environment. This type of environment is creative and opening to new ways of doing things. People who value this type of environment are likely to enjoy roles which are free of much of the convention to do with work, e.g. how you look, how you behave, etc. This couldn't be more spot on. As if you couldn't already guess. Yes, I am a creative person, and ideas tend to form quite easily with me. It's the following through part that's always the hardest part. But having a really good place to do that and just let the ideas flow and just not be hindered by silly, arbitrary rules like what you have to wear or how your hair has to look or whatever. You know, obviously within reason, there's no point in working a job where you need to be mobile and then wear clothes that don't move with you. You know, that sort of thing. But there are ways to be stylish, functional, and professional. Really important to me is a people-focused environment. Again, naturally, this does not come as a shock to me at all. This is a social and caring environment where people get on well together, they cooperate and help each other. It is found in caring professions, charities and public services. It can also be present in some companies, for example, in customer service departments. Well, most of which I have in fact worked at some point or another during my life. An ordered environment. This type of environment is structured, predictable, and with very clear requirements. It can be found in areas like administration and bookkeeping where the emphasis is on order and high standards. This shouldn't surprise anyone, certainly doesn't surprise me, because it kind of sounds like the opposite to the creative environment, but it's not. It's a supplementary complement to the freedom and the creativity. Like, yeah, those things are great, and those things are great within definitions and rules and structures that are built and designed to help people achieve better things. One thing I cannot stand is not knowing where I stand. All creativity and efficiency just goes out the window at that point. A productive environment. This environment values doers, people who work hard and who enjoy having something to show for their efforts. These values tend to be reflected in work that is practical. This is something that I learned about myself when I was doing my hairdressing course, where seeing achievable results was very satisfying. Like, you do a braid, okay, you do another braid, this looks better than the first one. You do a third braid, oh look, I'm actually getting really good at braiding now. Same thing with colouring, same thing with cutting, same thing with like any sort of specific requirement of that course. Was just a case of do it, be unhappy with the result, do it again, be happy with the result because it looks kind of better. Third time, oh look, I'm not only doing it better than before, but I'm also doing it quicker now as well. Seeing achievable results, it's one of those things that is self-motivating. A specialist environment. This environment is focused on specialist expertise. It suggests a role in a technical environment where people gain respect and reward on the basis of their expertise. Again, this isn't really a surprise that this would be something more up my particular alley, because I have certain areas of expertise throughout my life's experience and the studies that I've done and the more informal autodidactic studying that I have done in researching for videos, as well as my very strange specialist interests when it comes to board games and languages. The things at the bottom of this list, the things that I am less motivated by, are a lively environment. This type of environment is competitive and lively with an element of risk-taking. People are valued for their ability to press for results and to achieve. It can often be found in sales roles. This is one of the reasons why I did not like doing sales for what essentially was an MLM, but I didn't realise at the time. Pushing people for sales made me feel kind of gross about myself. Also, by that point, I think I just had enough of lively environments and wanted something a bit more calm, down to earth. Like, pubs with their lively environments are also incredibly hectic and stressful. And the thing that motivates me least is a money-focused environment. This is an environment where focus is on making money. Money is also given as a reward for doing well. It's typically found in commercial businesses rather than public sector or charity work. Basically, I don't care about money, as long as I have enough of it to live on. I see the value that in things that are more important than money. It's not to say that I don't need it, just to say that I resent needing it. Boo capitalism. Had to get that in there. The next sector we're looking at is working with numbers. Numerical assessments can be used to measure how well you might perform in a job where working with numbers is important. The working with numbers activity typically takes 15 minutes, as long as there were no distractions or interruptions, and I did roughly that. Number of questions, answered 10 of possible 10 questions. I didn't know that that was a choice. I thought I had to do them all. And of those questions, I answered 9 correctly. So, yay me, 9 out of 10. I found this activity about what I expected. And in order to give the best idea of how I did, they compared my results to the results of other people who completed the assessment, and this comparison showed that working with numbers is an area of particular strength for me. The next section is written information. Verbal assessments can be used to measure how well I might perform in a job where working with written information is important. The timing on this one, again, suggested about 15 minutes. I took a little bit longer than that, but it basically just because it was a test, I was reading everything twice. I answered 20 out of the possible 20 questions. Again, didn't know that there was an option to skip any. And of those, I answered 19 correctly. So again, yay me. But I did find it easier than I expected to actually complete the tasks. Again, when it comes to comparing my results to the results of others, it says that working with written information is an area of particular strength for me. The next section is checking information activity. So typical tasks involving this ability include sending out communications, letters, emails, inputting into information systems, such as data analysis and things like that, checking addresses or signatures as part of transactions, and proofreading documents. The timing on this activity typically took 18 minutes. I took about twice that, again, because I was reading everything twice. This one, top marks. I checked 40 rows of information correctly. This means I spotted all the mistakes. The more mistakes spotted, the more likely it is that checking information is something that I was comfortable with. Yeah. The material to be checked included abstract codes. It was license plates and things like that. Some simple numbers, financial figures, and some information given in 2 different formats. I did well spotting mistakes across the different types of information. This means I'm likely to get on well with a wide range of checking activities. It was easier than I expected, and also I did kind of enjoy it. It started to get a bit boring after a while because it was checking the same kind of format of things all the time. Like pattern seeking for me, again, kind of triggers something good in my brain. Solving mechanical problems was the next assessment. This activity looked at the ability to understand and use the principles of basic mechanics. Typical tasks involving this activity include assembly, maintenance, and repair of different types of equipment. So this activity took me less than the required amount of time. I think probably because I was a bit more comfortable with doing all these tests. By that point, I answered 11 out of 11 questions, and of those, I got 9 correct. So again, really high, good marks there. It says the mechanical activity included 3 different types of questions relating to applying physical principles, the movement of objects, and structure and weights. I did best with questions related to applying physical principles and the movement of objects. So less so with the structures. But I did find that activity was a bit harder than I expected. But again, it was kind of enjoyable. The next area that was tested was working with shapes. Typical tasks involving working with shapes include understanding site plans or maps, manufacturing, design, and assembly work, from bricklaying and pattern cutting to architecture and fashion design. It says this activity typically takes about 6 minutes. I took a little bit longer than that. I answered 14 of 14 questions, and I answered them all correct. Again, it was about as difficult as I was expecting, and yes, I kind of enjoyed it. I'm sorry, what can I say? I like standardized testing. I did quite well in my GCSEs as well for that reason. The next area that I was tested on was solving abstract problems. Solving abstract problems is particularly useful for jobs which require flexible thinking, problem solving, and developing situations from new information. I'm just going to say, as a lover of puzzles and a player of tabletop RPGs, this was bound to be an area that I would excel in. This part of the examination takes approximately 15 minutes, and I did roughly that. I answered 16 out of the possible 16 questions, and of those I answered 15 correctly. At this point it feels like I'm just bragging. It says there were 4 types of rules behind the problems. They were to do with how the different parts of a picture changed from one box to the next. They were reflections, where parts flipped as though seen in a mirror. Rotations, where parts revolved together. Movements, where parts moved around the picture. And repetition. And I did well at identifying all these different types of sequence rules. Again, it was about as difficult as I expected, and again, yes, it was kind of enjoyable. I really feel like the abstract puzzles and the shapes puzzles were basically the same kind of area, where I feel like if someone excels at one of those, they're more likely to be good at the other, just because they do sort of tap into similar kind of skill sets. Logical thinking, pattern recognition, that sort of thing. So that's it. That's the end of my assessment in terms of the tests that I had to do. What with this being an aptitude test, however, there are more results, and it suggests that the best match for my skills in terms of jobs, medicine and nursing. The interest questionnaire told us that medicine and nursing job family is one that I'm moderately interested in. One activity that is often part of this kind of job is using fairly abstract information, referred to solving abstract problems. And I guess that's true when you're trying to assess and diagnose patients. Retail sales and customer service, as if I haven't had enough of that. One activity that is often part of this kind of job is checking information, which, yeah, that makes sense. And also it is a people-focused type of work. Similarly with the whole nursing and medicine. Performing arts, broadcasting and media. This definitely doesn't come as a surprise to literally anyone. One activity that is sometimes a part of this kind of job is reasoning and using verbal information. Literally do this all the time. If you want to see me do more of this, please boost my numbers. Publishing and journalism. One activity that is often part of this job is reasoning and using verbal information. Same kind of skill set as the performing arts and broadcasting kind of job areas. Working with words and information and delivering that in a well-packaged way. So there we have it. There's my job assessment. There's my National Career Service approved aptitude test assessment of all the areas and all the things that I excelled at and was brilliant at and wonderful, and where's my goddamn medal? But like I said at the start of this video, what with it being an aptitude test, it doesn't actually then connect you to anywhere or any kind of job providers within these areas, which is, you know, part of why the job market sucks at the moment so badly, is because like these pathways from hypothetical to reality don't exist. But having heard all of that, I still need to ask the question. It has prompted me to ask the question to you, the audience. Wouldn't you hire me? I've got some nerve, alright? But apart from that, it was just fun and interesting to see which areas I felt more comfortable with, less comfortable with, which parts of the assessment, um, tested me, and which parts I really excelled at, which turns out was a lot of them. And I know, again, it does sound like a brag, but for someone who's going through depression, it's actually a really good thing to have empirical data on here are the areas where you do not suck as a person. Anyway, until next time with an incredibly niche topic for the final part of the trilogy, I have been Jocelyn. Non-binary is valid, goddammit. I'll see you all then. Bye.